So I would like to welcome Charlotte Moraga, Artistic Director of Chitresh Das Institute, today on our third installment of Once Upon a Time, where we are sort of having a casual conversation with senior gurus, artists, performers of Bay Area, and sort of trying to live their journeys through this art form. We thought with the COVID situation, we're all locked down, locked in. I think we felt it was a good time to contemplate, to reminisce old times, and listen to all the senior gurus on how it was. We are always complaining how so many things are inconvenient. We are not able to go here. We're not able to do this. We're not getting this. We're not getting that. But I don't think it was easy for them either when they were learning. And it took a lot of dedication and passion to get to where they are today. And so we thought this was a good time to go visit those memories when it was not such an easy journey for them. So today we have Charlotte Moraga with us. I am Naina Shastri from the Namaha Foundation for the Arts. I'm the founder director. And we have been doing this. We had Maitli Kumar on our first installment. They were celebrating their 40th year. Then we had Srimati Catherine Kuniraman. They were celebrating their 45th year. And today we have Charlotte with us. How exciting. Namaste, Charlotte. Welcome. And I'm so glad that you could make it today. We've been looking forward to having you. Many years ago, I actually did take a few classes with the Chandam school when Panditji was alive. And I didn't have the honor of meeting him very often, but I did see him for a couple of classes. When he came, he was a bundle of energy. And I mean, he put us all to shame. He would come like a whirlwind, dance like a tornado, and, like leave everything scattered in his wake. But it was exciting just to watch him and, his energy. So through you, we also wanted to live a few moments of his life as well today. Welcome again, Charlotte, and I hope people have signed in. As I was telling Charlotte, this link will also be available to watch again. If you want to watch, share it on our Facebook page. It will still be available after the interview as well. So if anybody has missed something, you can go back and take a listen to what we have. So Charlotte, what we've been doing is we've been using an easy route. We've been having the gurus introduce themselves. More like tell us about themselves. Who is Charlotte Moraga?
Okay. So I am Charlotte Moraga, and it's Guruji's 50th anniversary coming to the US.
Oh, wow. So that's another milestone then.
This year, September 8th.
Wow.
So, yes. So he, in 1970, he went to the East Coast to teach, and then Khan Saab invited him to Marin to teach at the Ali Akbar Khan College of Music. And then in the early 80s, 1982, he started his own school. And so he has a vast legacy and a vast history in India and in California. And so I came like midway through that.
Okay.
Very early 90s.
Okay.
Very early 90s. He was teaching I think one of the first 2-credit Kathak courses at San Francisco State University. And I was attending San Francisco State University to get my teaching credential.
Okay.
I had actually been a dancer my whole life. And in my early 20s, I danced professionally in musical theater and various different things in Atlanta, Georgia, and Miami, Florida, New York City, East Coast.
So you have been going across the country.
So when I moved to San Francisco, and I needed some at San Francisco State, I needed some PE credits.
Oh,
And
okay.
being a professional dancer, I really didn't want to take any Western forms of dance because I had reached a certain level and didn't want to do that in college. But they had a very unique program, Rosa Montoya and flamenco,
Uh-huh.
and Malonga
Uh-huh.
in Congolese,
Uh-huh.
and Pragisa and Capoeira,
Okay.
and Pandit Chitra Das, my Guruji,
Uh-huh.
and Kathak.
Ah.
At that time, I only really knew about flamenco because I'm
Mhm.
from Miami.
Oh, right.
So I wanted to take flamenco.
Okay.
And so apologize to my students who are watching, who have heard the story.
The secrets are coming out.
Tell the same story over and over again.
No, we would, there's so many who haven't heard of this. So yes, the students will probably, but not many other.
So the flamenco class was full. So I decided to take Kathak, and at that time I had no idea what it was. I didn't even know that it was Indian classical dance. I thought it was maybe some kind of folk dance. And and so the first time when I met him, as you mentioned, he was quite mesmerizing, and just the use of a single eyebrow or a finger, or just the way he used his body when he talked. He was a consummate Kataka, and he was very charismatic and enigmatic. And he challenged me in the dance in a way that I had never been challenged before. And so I took to it right away. And little did I know that it would be a lifelong path.
Right. So, that was my next question. So how did you pick Kathak? So that answers that. So, and then, so you continued after the course and you learned from him personally, and
it was really the whole journey has been serendipitous because I didn't expect to continue on at all past my credits,
right.
Because I was going into a different phase of my life. I had 2 young children, and I was going into a different profession, teaching.
Right.
And but he said, "Oh, do you want to perform?" So at the end of the course, he had his whole school performed at McKenna Theater. Back then, we used to perform at McKenna Theater. And I said, "Okay, sure." And he said, "Well, you have to get kungru." And I'm like, "Okay." And then he said, "Well, do you want to have a kungru ceremony?" And I said, "No, that's okay." I didn't know. And I didn't think that it was going to be, I was going to continue. And so I got my kungru, I performed on the stage. And then, I really liked it. So he said, "Well, I'm teaching in San Francisco at the Cultural Integration Fellowship on Hilton. Why don't you come to class, Tuesday night class?" And I said, "Okay, I'll try to come." And so one thing led to another. I started taking class, and he said, "You want to perform?" And then again, perform, and then again, and then again. And I'm a performer, so I would never say no.
Yes, exactly. So the gurus were, so he offered the course during the college years, was that, would that culminate in getting the gurus? Were the students given the gurus? Yeah, no.
Not necessarily. Well, not necessarily,
right?
Not necessarily. It depends on if they were going to perform or not.
Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily.
That performance, was it restricted to the college coursework, or was
no, it entailed his whole school.
I see. Okay. So you would be part of his school.
He left Ali Akbar Khan College of Music in 1982 and founded his own school at that time, Chandam, as you mentioned.
Right.
And so they used to do a school show there, and then so he had various different classes, and the San Francisco State University class performed also.
Nice. Okay.
So
yeah.
But he had this way of challenging me. So not only in a highly physical way, but in a philosophical way, and in a personal way too. He always held up a mirror that sort of made you just really made you want to to achieve something, and he saw in you things that you didn't necessarily see.
Okay. Right.
He was a great person, great teacher, great guru. Yeah. So I feel very blessed to have met him and to been on this journey. And so I joined the company, the Chitrasas Dance Company. We performed all over the world, toured to India, played principal roles in almost all of his dance dramas and productions. And then we started the youth company in 2002. Started that in 2002. And I started training or started working with him and training and helping to train the next generation. We have to this day our youth company. And he passed away in 2015, and we started the Chitrasas Institute with Celine Shine Das, his wife and the executive director from Chandam, 3 years ago. So the youth company is continuing under us, and we have a thriving community of dancers, and we are just so blessed to be able to carry on this legacy and this tradition.
Nice. Okay. All right. So, so as I said, you know, you've been one of his principal students for many years. Although, of course, you said that you joined him in the 90s, but still, for us, you are one of his senior. For me, at least, I have seen some of you only as his senior students. So, how was it at the learning experience at that time with Panditji?
It was very intense. At that time, when I went to his class outside of San Francisco State University at the CIF, he taught one class. And in that class were about 20 to 25 students from beginning, me, a 6 months Kathak student. I had a long background of other kinds of dance, but 6 months Kathak. And to dancers who have been dancing for 20, 25 years.
Wow, okay.
One class. So there was no level.
Right.
Say there was no 1A, 1B, 1C. You'd like
nothing like that.
There was none of that. It was just him, and he taught, you know, everything from basic exercises to taranas to gatpao to, you know, songs to so many different things in about an hour and a half or 2 hours. It ended up being about 2 hours because we would also after class sit and recite and sing. And then at the end of every class, he would always say 3 questions asked.
Oh, okay.
So we weren't allowed to leave until the questions were asked.
Okay.
And this is what he said at the very first class I took with him. I'm not a dance teacher, I'm a dance preacher. And so those, you know, those lectures at the end of class or those questions turned out to be incredibly deep and thought-provoking. You know, and it was about life and current events and not just about dance.
Right. So what about younger students? Were they also part of that class? Would they also be in that class with you, or was it mostly more adults kind of?
Yeah, that particular class was adults. It was a mixture of different levels of adults. He did teach in Fremont, more leveled classes, children's classes. And at that time, Michelle Zonka, who really started the foundation of the curriculum, really put together the curriculum of his teachings. She was the one who kind of started that formalization of it. She taught one class before his class that was just exercises. So to get people up to speed.
Warm up,
But not to say that you were not any less lost in his class.
Correct. I know.
But it was such a joy just to stand in the back and try to keep up, you know.
Keep up, yeah. That's true. Keeping up with him was always a challenge, and always a, you know, like everybody's goal, right? To kind of match up to his.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so you've been with Panditji for so many years. Could you share some interesting anecdotes or something, you know, some interesting fun facts about Panditji?
Oh, gosh.
I'm sure there's a lot.
There are so many. You know, he had a great sense of humor. And yeah, I mean, there's so many. There's so many. I can't think of just one off the top of my head. And but he was a consummate gataka. He was a storyteller. So everything was a story. And he was quite funny. But he was also very taskmaster, very strict,
Yeah.
very and at that time when I came to study with him, you were coming to learn, you weren't coming to perform. Like later on and nowadays people come with the expectation that they're going to perform. And so I know it might have sounded like, oh, I started performing right away, but he was really not interested in people performing. He was like, you don't take this as a hobby, this is like a life, this is a serious study. It's like a sadhana.
Right.
So so he was very, very strict, very challenging, but he had this incredible humanity and this incredible humor that sort of tempered.
The strictness and the discipline.
And he really cared. Like I had in my dance career had studied with masters. I took class from Gelsey Kirkland in Atlanta, who's a very famous ballerina, and Gary Hare, you know, Frank Hatchett, very famous jazz dance, you know, these kinds of people. But I have never met an artist who, you know, great artists aren't necessarily great teachers.
Yes, that's true.
And great teachers are not necessarily great artists.
Performers, yeah.
And so I had never met an artist who was a great artist, a great teacher, but also believed 100% in every single student that he taught, like me. Like I obviously am not Indian origin, yet he never held back anything. He gave 100%.
Right.
And so his generosity was also unparalleled. So I thought, whatever he's teaching, it doesn't matter. I have to study with this person because this is a very rare individual.
Right. Do you think did he have to modify his way of teaching in any way when he came here to the US, or did he carry the same kind of teaching spirit that we have in India? Do you think there was anything different or not?
He would say no, not really that different. When he came in the 1970s, at that time he was teaching what he would say blondes and brunettes, the hippie generation.
Yes,
right, because it was the first generation of Indians that were coming to establish themselves.
Right.
And it was when they started having children that they wanted to be connected to the children, to be connected to culture, and you know, and so it wasn't until the 90s, maybe the mid 80s, that he really started to get those Indian families. So it was, for him, I think it was a little bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, must have been. Yeah. Because at that time there weren't as many Indians also, right? Even otherwise.
Right.
Well, yeah, right? So,
yes.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think that he really, you know, changed that much, because he had this unique ability to take the essence of the art form, the essence of what he had learned, and elevate it and make it more challenging and make it more relevant to what is going on today.
Right.
So that I don't think he had to change. I mean, every artist changes. Every individual has to change with the times. Otherwise, it's a dusty museum piece. It doesn't.
Correct. Yeah, you don't evolve.
But I think at the core, he held very true to what he had always believed in and always done, and he never really compromised on the principles of that.
So how was it for you? Did you have difficulty? I mean, because there's a lot of the terminologies and a lot of the, you know, like the mythology and all of that also. I know you had your question answer sessions, but it was still for you also a totally new art form and history behind the art form as well. So how was it for you personally when you started? Was it difficult initially? Did you?
Well, the thing that was most difficult initially was the tal.
Hmm.
The technique-wise, that was not difficult. Like I could from the very beginning do double turns, triple turns.
Okay, right. You had the
Because I
training
was
as
a
well.
trained dancer.
Correct.
But it took me 2 years to find some.
Uh,
The first beat of the tal in his class. So that took a long time. Once I found it, I was never going to let
you
go.
could, yeah. That finding the sound was the first.
Yeah. So yeah, because of the class that he taught was so rich, it was so full. You know, it wasn't broken down. You weren't being spoon fed. He would not spoon feed. So it did take a while for certain things like dal.
Right.
In terms of like because as you know, Kathak is historical and philosophical, and there's so much nuance, and there's the language, and there's poetry, and there's song. So that I sort of immersed myself in reading, in learning, you know, the great epics, and just really sort of educated myself through a lot of reading. At that time, the internet was brand new, baby.
Yes.
And,
that's going to be my next question, but yes, please do.
Well, there wasn't that much on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a lot of reading.
Right, because now what I find is anytime we have a class, everybody wants, oh, can we take a video because we want to practice? And I always tell them, when we learned, we never had any kind of videos or anything. You have to, you know, pick up and practice and do it. So that was my next question. How did you learn it? Because sometimes I feel like we, at least when I was learning in India, you know, you grow up around these temples and grandmother stories and all that. So a little bit, to a certain extent, we are already exposed to certain elements of these art forms. But living here, going once a week for classes for 2 hours, how did you then supplement it? And at least, you know, until you learn the basics, right? So, because I want to tell that you can do it without a video.
Well, yes. I mean, back then we were not allowed to record. We had these like handheld cassette tape players.
Right.
We weren't allowed to record compositions. And we couldn't dance. If we couldn't recite a composition, we couldn't dance it. So we had to learn to recite the old school way. We had to learn to recite all our compositions.
Okay.
And we had to learn how to notate and write it in notation.
Right.
So there was that's how we learned. We weren't even really allowed to record in those days. And I'm talking audio record, forget video record.
Video no audio recording either.
For at least 10 years, right?
Right.
So, but you know, it wasn't one class a week. I really took every class that he offered.
I see.
I really studied with him pretty intensely. Once after about, you know, once I got my feet wet, I pretty much studied with him 4 times a week. And then sometimes occasionally one-on-one, especially toward my first solo. So it was a real Guru Shishya Parampara. I would pick up my kids from school, put them in the car with me, do the homework in the car, drive all the way to Fremont for his class there. They would sit in class doing their homework. My daughter, by the time she was 7, could do all of Kaliya Dalman, never taking a class herself. Just
sure. Yes, just by listening and watching. Yeah. Do they perform?
No, they're not. They are artists, but they're not dancers.
Not. They didn't take.
Yeah.
They have it in blood. Yeah. So.
Children pick up things, as you say.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
But, you know, and also I think what can't be underestimated is this old school sort of principle in the Western context that we considered apprenticeship. So, you know, I spent a lot of time with him. So we would often after class go, especially in Union City, when we had class in Union City, we would go after every class, we would go eat. Yeah. And eating is such. He was a great cook, and he was.
Okay, so he would be the cook.
Yes, he's a chef, but he wasn't cooking. We would go to a restaurant, and he would just talk and tell stories, and you absorb so much through the stories, and some of the most beautiful compositions I've learned from him have been when we're in an airplane flying over the Grand Canyon, or or he's in the kitchen cooking chingri mach, and and he's all of a sudden burst into this composition that he learned when he was 14 years old. These kind of things you can never learn in class.
Correct. That's
so
true.
if you really want to learn the from a guru such as that, you have to spend a lot of time. Lot of time.
Correct.
So in addition to taking every class he offered that was open to me, and spending time with him outside of class, I also I read a lot, and I would share some of the things I read with him, and we would have conversations about it. So there's a lot of things that, nuances that I picked up along the way through that deep. And on top of that, I had a pretty serious riyaz. I had riyaz, mehnat ke saath, we call it.
Correct. Yeah.
So
if you don't mind me asking, what was your riyaz schedule? How did you, and you also, you did, you were in the, you taught, right? You also taught in the school. With your,
at that time.
So you had another profession.
Yes, at that time it was not easy.
And kids and family and everything. So how did you schedule yourself?
It was not easy, and actually looking back, I don't know how I did it. I was obsessed. I was completely, totally obsessed.
Yes.
And I knew what he was teaching was just so brilliant. I connected with it in a way I had never connected with anything else. It was just so brilliant. And he constantly challenged me. So he was a constant source of inspiration, constant, even to this day, constant source of inspiration. And so, my husband used to say that my toes would be going in my sleep. He could never go to sleep because, so I think a lot of my practice was in my sleep. But whenever I could fit it in, so, if I could fit it in the morning before getting everyone to their places and to work, or in the afternoons and evenings, wherever I could fit it in. But it would be pretty much every day unless I had a class, and it would just be the most bang for the buck. Like I would be like, okay, I've got 20 minutes. I'm going to do 500 chukkers.
Okay.
It wouldn't be like, okay, let's put on some music and just go like that. It would be like super intense. But I knew when I got in class, the other things would come.
Right.
Get the vocabulary, so.
Right. So as a teacher, you would say that it's always good for students to, when they're doing their riyaz or their practice, to always go back to the basics. And
absolutely.
Right. And not just the new item that they're doing, but always do, like in our Bharatanatyam, we have adavus, and we have, to go back to that, do that no matter how many years they have learned the art.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we in our school, in the Chitrasasa Institute, we teach his exercises that he developed that have certain movement phrases that go with certain bowls, and they come in different layas, different speeds, and that sort of thing.
Right.
And in Chandam, they pretty much taught it at the beginning level. And I always believe that why do not we have these exercises all the way up to advanced exercise? They could be more advanced exercises. Correct. Because in every other dance form, they have it.
Yes.
Ballet, whether you're a beginning dancer or advanced dancer, you're going to do your bar,
right?
The same procedures through the bar, the beginning of the day, no matter what level you are. Right? It's the fine tuning of your instrument as a dancer is your body. Right?
Yeah.
So, if you're a painter, you're going to have many brushes, and they're going to not have a bent bristle this way. They're going to be nice, right? So your body has to constantly be refined and tuned, no matter how long you've been dancing.
Right.
So, so I have taken exercises that he has shown throughout the year and built on them to make sure that we could have that at the Chitrasasa Institute to keep refining the body, keep refining and keep learning and keep developing, because you'll never, once your body stops refining itself, you're done.
you're done.
you're done. It's like
Yeah.
an instrument, you know, it doesn't have sound, it doesn't have the tune.
Busted, then it's done.
Hmm,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's yes, that's what I want also aspiring students, if they haven't been learning, if they're interested in learning, I want them to also understand these concepts that we have in our classical art forms. So coming back again, Aditi, what was your experience when you visited India for the first time?
Yes, so in the 90s, Kolkata, it was in the winter. We went to Kolkata and we stayed at the Ramakrishna Mission. And at that time, it was very, very polluted. Well, it's not, it still is, but not as bad as it was.
Worse than it was.
It was worse because they had all those British, what do they call those taxis? I forget what they call.
Oh yes, yes. I don't know what they're called in Calcutta, but yeah.
Yeah, they're all diesel or something like
yes,
that.
Yeah, diesel taxis.
Right. So now they have better cars, right? They have cars, but better. So it's very, very, very polluted, but
crowded.
That was, what's that?
Crowded too.
Not so much around Ramakrishna Mission.
Ramakrishna Mission, maybe not.
I mean, living in cities here, I didn't feel like it was more
New York and all that. Yeah,
more crowded there. But everything. It was just a great sensory experience, and just the smells are fantastic. I love the food, and everything is just. It's beautiful. It's bright, or there's the senses are completely full.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I mean, I think also being with him in his hometown, he was always busy. So it was kind of a whirlwind. So I just, as usual, just trying to keep up and just learn so much all the time. And, yeah, I will say when I discovered Shondesh, this is the most divine thing on this planet. I have a sweet tooth, right? So I bought a big box to take home to my family. I made the big mistake of putting it on my carry-on.
Oh no.
Did not go to my suitcase. By the time I got back to San Francisco, it was all gone.
The bottle for the family.
So the food.
Yeah. So did you learn? Do you cook any Bengali cuisine?
Not as good as other people. So
you have, but you do try to dabble.
Yes.
So, Shaladi, how has teaching changed in any way since you learned, and now that you are teaching, and since you also had been teaching with Panditji? Yeah. Has it changed over the period of years, especially among the younger generation?
Yeah, it has. It has. First of all, what we were talking about before is now their students can have these cell phones and they can record audio, they can record video. So I think things are more easily accessible to them.
Right.
And we have more formalized curriculum that is very broken down to specific levels, that is cumulative. And, so I think when I first studied with Guruji, it wasn't like that at all. I mean, everything, you just got, you got everything, and you sorted through it. And and also there was students today, especially young students, I feel many of them want to do too much. And they want to be on the debate team, they want to be on the soccer team, they want to be on the volleyball team, and that's all very fine. But if you really want to get good at Kathak, if you want to be a good dancer, just like if you want to be a good pianist or a good violinist, you must have a daily riyaz. You must study seriously, and you must take every opportunity you can that will inform you and teach you, and you will learn and will build on your experience. Otherwise, it's just, it is just a hobby. It's just a pastime.
Passing.
Right. And I think, when I came to Guruji, he's like, this is not a hobby. And I think he changed over the time and, and made it more accessible to lots of people. But at the same time, as you've met him, he never really sacrificed his standards.
Yes.
So, but I think that, that expectation, if you want to perform, and you want to be a good dancer, you really have to take this as a serious study, and you can't let other pastimes get in the way.
Yeah, that's true. So what do you think is now the sort of the sentiments among the youngsters? I mean, do a lot of them take it beyond, push themselves beyond that, just pastime kind of, or a, what I would say is mostly college application sentiment. So because we get that a lot in Bharatanatyam, especially because Arangetram they think is a final stop, and and we want to get this, and that's the other thing. Oh, but everybody is doing the Arangetram, so how is that going to affect our college applications? And I'm like, I don't think we learned this for college applications. So
we have the same thing in Kathak.
Yes.
We don't have Arangetram. We don't have Arangetram because in Kathak there's a lot of upaj, there's a lot of improvisation. So there's a lot of so I mean, in terms of, we call it a solo, or some people call it Ranga Pravesh or something like that. But we call it a solo, where you take the stage with live music, an audience, and you go through the whole spectrum of what a solo is, with the vandana and the khat and the gatpao and all the different aspects of the bolparan and all that sort of thing. So that very few students can achieve unless they have seriously studied for 10 years, seriously studied. So there, very few students get that, but we have an annual show, and we do encourage all of our students to perform just for the joy of it and sharing the joy, whatever they have learned. So I in terms of the college applications, I think I have faith that some will come back. Who have actually gone through that process of doing a solo.
Right.
But, the first year of college is kind of a wash, because they're first out of their, as Guruji would say, parents' hotel, and they're trying to figure out their new identity and their new place and their lives, right?
Yeah,
so I think I don't have too much expectations, but I think as time goes on, they miss it. And they'll start to practice again. And I think we are trying to find ways to support them in that. And ironically, with this kind of Zoom world that we're in now, I've been able to teach, I start a Kathak Fellows program to teach the ones who have gone to college, who have gone through that process, who invested decades, some of them decades, and are beautiful dancers, and to teach them and help them to further along on this journey. So I think some want that, and some will come back to it, and some won't, and that's okay, because it has profoundly shaped them and in their lives, and that's okay. Not everybody has to be
a performer or a dancer.
The whole life. I mean, it has been a sadhana for me. It's my path. I mean, it has led me down this path of self-knowledge and self-discovery and acceptance and compassion and joy that nothing else could have done. But even if you have invested a lot of time in dance and you are a fantastic dancer, maybe that's not your path.
Right.
Yeah. So
they probably find their, probably it helps them find what they're good at, and
Absolutely. And I think it ultimately is about self-discovery and self-knowledge, so that they will learn more about themselves through going through these challenges in the dance, and maybe find out what their true gift is, if it's not in the dance. but it's also this Zoom situation has allowed me to teach one of his students from India.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able
Yeah.
to. So it's been a great continuity and a great connecting.
Correct.
And, so we have so many different students, so many different levels now that are able to access it and continue to be a part of it.
And you still think, and you think that, and you feel like the Zoom classes are still okay, especially for the younger or the earlier students who are learning, the basics of the art form. You still think Zoom is okay? I guess it's now the best of what we have, but still.
Right. It's better than nothing. I mean, it's, you and I, we both know it's not ideal. The lag is really not good for music and dance because nobody's in the style. Everyone's got their own sum.
Much harder to find the summit. I mean, sometimes never at all.
Exactly. And everyone has to be muted, otherwise, so you don't get the feedback, you don't get, in person. Dance is so much more than what you see.
Correct.
There's the facial, for the nuances of, say, facial expression that you can't pick up on this little tiny box, right?
Yeah.
There's the tension in the body that you can feel and maybe not see. Maybe you can see it, maybe you're not see it. So there's so many little things that you can't get in the Zoom situation. So obviously in person is much better, but I still think that it's, students can still learn and they can still at least feel connected.
Correct.
You could still have a relationship and connect, and it's better than nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I swore I would never teach online.
Yes, exactly. I would always tell parents to ask for like online. I said, no, at least the basics, you have to come to class and do it. But now like, I have to do the basics also. And so I guess we also have to adapt ourselves.
Exactly.
This has been wonderful, ladies. So I would like to ask we're coming towards the end of the interview. I have two of my students who want to also ask a question each. But before that, I wanted to ask you, because that is something that I always remembered Panditji would say, this is not like Bollywood dance. You just come to class and you do something and then forget about it. So do you think classical art forms have been influenced by modernization or changed, or has there been any kind of impact? Obvious, there is some, but what, in your opinion, is?
Yeah, I mean, I think some for better and some for worse. I mean, there's always, art forms evolve. He himself evolved the art form. He pushed the envelope. Things became. He developed so many different types of chakras, so many different types of footwork, faster, and there's so many. So he himself evolved the art form, and so art forms do evolve, and side by side with what's going on in society or technology, and that kind of thing. I mean, I think I forgot what the exact question.
What was what you think modernization has impacted our art forms in any way?
So in some ways, I mean, obviously the things we've already talked about with technology and the easier access, which is not necessarily a good thing, because you miss a lot of the nuances. But it also matches what's happening in the art form, which is that people don't have time to sit through a 2-hour concert.
That's
necessarily, or not necessarily everybody wants to, especially if you've not trained at a certain level and you're not, bringing the artist into yourself as an individual, So, so I think it also has matched that, these little bits, items,
bursts of
choreographies,
right.
Our art form originally wasn't really based on choreography. It's based on mathematics. It's based on bowl. It's based on sound. It's based on movement. It's based on stories. It's based on shlok and kavit and all these things, which can be interpreted in many different ways.
Correct.
So it's not so much codified.
Yes.
Especially as an artist, you can interpret it in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So I think choreography is it's a modern, we all do it, and
Yeah.
I do it
Right.
quite a lot. I actually love choreographing, but it's its own thing. I think simultaneously there also has to be the tradition that is taught, and those two things simultaneously are fine in modern context. Just pure tradition with no choreography and no things, no no video and no all that kind of stuff. It's not, you're not going to be accessed by everybody.
Correct.
And this art form is for everybody.
Yes.
Right? So it has to be both. It has to be both. But the art form itself, I mean, you and I know, with all the stories and the strokes and things, there's a reason why these stories are so ancient, because they're based on universal human phenomenon,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
So when we teach the story of Krishna and Kalia Daman from very beginning level,
Right.
we're not just saying, okay, there was this little boy, Krishna, and he met a serpent demon and he slayed it and he saved the village, right? Well, this is fairy tales, but because once upon a time, right?
Story. Yeah.
But what we teach is that this is, you are Krishna. That Kalia could be the thing you're afraid of. Could be your challenge that you have to face.
Right.
It could be, as if I were to tell the story, it could be the industrial waste complex and single-use plastic and all this pollution that we're drowning in. It could be COVID-19.
Right.
It could be things that you have to face and you have to defeat. And so this is why I don't think, like, our stories and our bowls and our shloks and our kavits will be universally timeless. You don't necessarily have to tell the story of
that it has, that as a sort of you can humanize the stories and
exactly
relate to them as in today's times as well. So
there's so much. I mean, just recently with our last school show, the story of Amrita Devi,
right,
who basically back in the 1700s sacrificed herself to disobey the Maharaja, who wanted to cut down the trees to save the trees. She said, this is our blood, this is our soul, this is our air, we cannot accept this. And basically they hugged the trees and there was a massacre. But that became the inspiration for the Chipko movement in the 1980s.
Correct. Right? Yes.
And the Chipko movement, Martin Luther King himself was influenced by Gandhi and these kind of
hug the trees and
exactly. And then those became called then the American hippies, that the Greenpeace that adopted these practices from women in India. They became tree huggers.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like the connection with American, with what we think is uniquely American.
Correct.
Not true. It is universal.
Global,
and so much of it comes from India. So much of it comes from it. So it's seeing the connection. It's seeing the relevancy. It's seeing what is needed in this time. What is the story? What is the angle we take on the story that's needed this time?
Correct.
When Guruji did Sita Haran in 2009, I played the role of Ravan and Bali. And when Bali is shot at the end, so back when we did it in 2002, Bali is lifted for moksha at the end, right? But this time Guruji wanted the ending to be the shock on Bali's face. Like, how can this God shoot me in the back?
Right.
So the question would come into people's mind, is violence ever okay? You may justify it as fate, as whatever, but is it ever okay? So it's seeing those stories from a different angle to see what is needed for people to connect and to feel compelled at this time.
Interesting.
Right?
So
I don't think that in terms of modern, it's not an issue. As long as you keep to the tradition and you try to make it mean, and you make sure it's meaningful. And it is, it speaks to you.
And sort of maybe draw connections from today's times to the traditions.
You have to. I mean, Guruji always did that. And so, so I think again, blessed that I saw that was so clearly an easy, that you had to do that's the way to make it relevant. And I mean, how would someone like me be able to connect with it if that were not the case.
Correct. Yeah.
And this art form is not just, it's for the world.
World. Yes.
It's for the world.
Yes.
You know,
That
it's
opens it up
what
for the world.
it's the one of the greatest art forms in the entire world. I mean, what other art form has incredible technique of ballet where they do pirouettes? We do pirouettes with 5 pounds of bells on our feet and in tal, in specific rhythmic cycles.
With training.
And then also the great plays that are like Shakespearean epics, you know,
operatic kind of performances. Yeah.
And song and an incredible rhythm that rivals
even speeches though, but that's one thing that's very unique to Kathak, because you also recite the bowls, which not other art forms, classical forms do. Well, in Kathak you do step out and recite and then come back, and so you have to have both lung power and feet and body power, right?
A lot of stamina. Yes. Control of the breath.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So this was amazing, Didi. I'm going to invite one of my students, Anusha Pai. She has a question for you about the youth company. So I wanted my girls also to be involved in all of these things and be part of understanding these art forms. So Anusha Pai, you want to ask Shalad Didi a question?
Hi, it was so interesting to hear your perspective in your dance journey. So Chitrish Das Institute has a youth company. So what kind of commitment would be expected from a member of the youth company?
So they would have to have studied for 2 or more years and be recommended by their teacher to audition for the youth company. Auditioning is based on the 3 A's. Attitude comes first, because you can't learn a classical art form without the proper attitude, the open mind, open heart, these kinds of things, right? Attitude, attendance, always never missing a class, always being there. The dance in attendance is there. You can't dance if you don't attend, right? And then ability. So the 3 A's. And then if they pass the audition process, which is very rigorous, then they sign a contract that they will maintain a daily reyaz, and they have reyaz logs that they are supposed to keep up, and then that they're also expected to attend rehearsals and attend Sundays is usually a big day. It's 4 hours of training on Sundays, and then a weekly class as well.
So as you can see, this is for all the students out there. It takes a lot to get to where students in the company are. It just doesn't come by attending one hour once a week. You need to reinforce it. You need to, as Didi said, practice and dedicate a certain amount of your life, so to say, to this form, right? To achieve that kind of perfection and that kind of stamina and ability. So I would like to invite Riya Manjunath. She wants to ask a follow-up question on that one. Riya.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for coming. All the answers, the interview that you've done so far has been really interesting to listen to. So a quick follow-up question. Apart from learning the dance form of Kathak, what other aspects of the art form do students learn as part of the youth company?
Obviously, as we talked about, there's the dance, there's the structure of the dance, the tal, there's recitation, counting, there's singing, there's notation, there's also the history and philosophy of the art form, of the stories, and then there's also life lessons. If you really apply yourself in the dance, it will teach you so much. If you really strive to do something very challenging and then you have achieved something, you will learn so much about yourself. And it's not easy to commit, as you know, probably as a student, to commit to a classical art form. So I think life lessons is huge, huge thing. And then as well as, being a leader and being an advocate for the arts and is also an important part of our program.
Learning. Yeah. So
Thank you.
there has to be an all-round sort of education when they commit to learning this art form. Um, because a singer just needs to learn how to sing, but a dancer needs to know how to sing and dance and maybe try and at least know the theory of playing an instrument. And because I remember that's the other memory I have of Panditji, of this tabla. He would play his tabla and talk and dance, and he would say, when you're 70 you should be dancing like this. So that's never going to be erased from my memory, because I think, my God, this man is so amazing. So it's been wonderful, Lily. One final question actually I wanted to ask you. So you said that Panditji was teaching in the university initially when he came. Do we have such programs going on anymore? I don't see of many universities or local community colleges offering any such programs. Why is that?
That's a very good question. I mean, dance has, it's always, arts is the first thing to be cut, right? It comes, he would have a whole long thing and say it comes down to dollar signs.
That's
universities can make a lot of money on MBAs and things like that. But dance is the first thing to be cut. Arts is first to be cut. Dance is at the bottom. Then I think maybe,
theater,
drama, then music. Theater, then music, and and that visuals coming at the top, right? That's considered the real artist, right?
Art.
Yes. So I think it's that might have something to do with it. I mean, Gretchen D, who is actually senior to me, she studied with him at the college, at the Ali Akbar Khan College of Music back in the 70s. And she has a school in Boston, and she teaches at Tufts there, at Tufts University. So there are a few, but that program that was so special and unique, that in the 90s at San Francisco State, they had cut all of the artists, and there's not any diversity as far as I mean, I don't mean diversity racially, there may be, but there's not diversity in terms of art forms,
genres, and that, because as you said, there were so many, it seems like, different art forms that were offered in the university, right? And you couldn't take one, but then you chose Kathak, which I don't see anymore, and they don't seem to be very accepting this, because do you think that people would in today's time, don't you think they would have a demand for these courses? Because there are a lot of students who learn these art forms now, take to them.
I mean, I do absolutely. I think also there is so much of it that is offered outside of university.
Okay.
And there are such a wide range of, especially in a place like San Francisco, you have hundreds of different dance forms in San Francisco, right?
That's right.
So the university has to choose someone who's credentialed, or has the right credentials, can be tenured, and so most of these artists, true masters, true gurus,
right,
they don't have those degrees.
Have those kind of official.
I myself had the same problem where I teach dance in the public schools right now, and I never had a dance degree. I actually had to get a supplemental credential to teach dance, even though I have been a professional dancer my entire life, because there is a disconnect between dance in universities and dance in the field.
Right.
So I think until that disconnect is bridged, it's going to be problematic for some universities. But it's sad, because you learn so much more than just dance.
Yes, exactly. Because there's it, and especially with the traditional art forms like this, it's not just the dance, it's the practice. I mean, the practice of this. There's a history behind it. There's so much theory behind it.
Yes.
So that is, I feel, that gets lost in all of this, because everybody just wants to perform.
Yes.
That they don't have time or the energy to look at the theory of the dance.
Yes, correct.
So
absolutely.
On that note, and hopefully things will change, and I have to confess, I am enjoying this lockdown, because now I get to talk to all teachers like you, and it's kind of made the world actually smaller, because now I can reach out to people, not just here but outside, and as you said, you can talk to people in India or other places where you wouldn't otherwise be able to. So in a way, I think I'm also enjoying this time. So
kudos for you for doing this, because that is taking advantage of the opportunity, because you're right. This has been wonderful and very enjoyable, and our students may get to
hopefully inspire
something they may not in just regular class situation, right?
Correct, yeah, because we also at that time don't have time to tell everything or talk about everything, right? We're like jumping from one class to the other or one event to the other. So yeah, this has been really fun. Shaladi, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I would like to invite all my other supporting team here to also join us. Ria asked you a question, Anusha also did, but I also have Sindhuri Kalavacharla. She handles the tech behind all of this. She helps with setting up our links and publicizing on all the social media, which is another thing that I think as artists, I find myself lacking. We're not good with all those those kind of things. You ask me to dance, I'll dance, but I don't know about all those other things. So, and we have Srimati Nalini Kalavacharla. She has been my support and sort of Saki, I would say, in a lot of my such adventures. So, and my daughter Maya, she joins me, and she's my controller at home. She's like, Mom, you didn't turn this on. Mom, you didn't turn that on. So she's my tech support at home. So I would like to thank you again. And Didi, we take a screenshot of all of you and the performers, and we will post it online. So
awesome.
Give a little smile now.
I will take a few.
Let us know.
3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to take 2 more. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much,
Shaladi. And for all the audience that have joined us one more time, this link will be available on our Facebook page. So if you have any of your friends or family or students who have missed today's conversation, please do share the link, join us there. You can watch Shaladi talk of all her memories and her journey. It's been wonderful. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Tomorrow we are having our Naipunya Dance Festival. That's another presentation. Shaladi, if you have students who would like to participate, please do let us know. It's a solo dance series that we've so far been hosting it in the temple, because that is like, that's where our art forms sort of flourished. So we've presented 2 solo performers every month. And we wanted to have solo artists because a lot of times the nuances of our classical dances get lost in a group performance. And a solo, for one, requires a certain amount of expertise and some practice and some amount of experience to handle. So we wanted to have this solo performance series. We've been doing it for the past 2 years in the temple here at San Ramon, the Sai Temple. But since the lockdown, we've moved it online. And I have to say, and that's also exciting because now I can get performers from India also to perform. And we have that tomorrow. We have a girl performing from Bangalore and another performer from here, from the US. So we have a Kuchipudi and a Bharatanatyam presentation tomorrow. So please do join us for the Naipunya Dance Festival. We've called it E-Naipunya now. So, and do keep in touch with and follow us on our Facebook page. We have some exciting events coming up. And Shaladi, we hope to see you again soon, and thank you again. Namaskar. Good night and have a wonderful weekend, everybody.